The wealthy man stood in his glass-walled office overlooking the city. The skyscrapers gleamed like jewels in the morning sun, but his voice was sharper than the skyline. He slammed a file shut and muttered to himself, "Pathetic. People waste their lives scrubbing floors while I build empires." Behind him, the janitor entered quietly with his mop and cart, his head slightly lowered out of respect. His uniform was faded, shoes worn thin, and hands calloused from years of labor. He didn't say a word, just started sweeping the marble floor near the office entrance. The rich man turned, narrowing his eyes. "You again? Do you ever get tired of this? Cleaning other people's dirt? Tell me, what kind of man chooses to mop floors for a living?" The janitor paused, leaning on the mop handle. His voice was calm, deep, and heavy with quiet dignity. "A man who knows the value of work, sir. Every job has honor if you put your heart in it." The rich man scoffed. "Honor? There's no honor in being invisible. You clean up after men like me. You're replaceable like the mop you hold." The janitor met his gaze unflinching, though his eyes carried the weight of decades of hardship. "Maybe so. But sometimes the people you think are the smallest end up standing tallest when it matters most." The office fell silent for a moment. The sound of traffic below seemed distant. The rich man rolled his eyes and waved dismissively. "Save your fortune cookie wisdom for someone else. Just keep the floor shiny. That's the only thing you're good for." The janitor gave a faint smile, but inside, something cut deep. He'd heard such words his whole life, words that tried to define him, to make him feel less. Yet he knew something the rich man didn't. Respect wasn't bought with money, and dignity couldn't be mocked out of existence. Later that evening, in the empty corridors of the office building, the janitor worked alone. His mop echoed across the marble. He paused at the rich man's door, noticing the faint glow of light under it. The man was still inside, probably buried in his files and numbers, too proud to rest. The janitor shook his head. "Even kings can be prisoners," he murmured softly, then continued on. The next morning brought no change. The rich man walked briskly into the lobby, suit crisp, phone in hand, ignoring greetings from staff. He spotted the janitor polishing the entrance glass. "Still here?" He smirked. "I swear you live in this building." The janitor wiped the glass in steady circles, his reflection facing the rich man. "Some of us don't measure life by where we live, sir, but by how we serve." The rich man chuckled bitterly. "Service doesn't make you great. Power does." He tapped his chest. "And I've got all of it." The janitor turned fully now, his voice steady. "Power without humility is like fire without control. It destroys everything in its path." The words stung the rich man more than he cared to admit. He turned sharply, muttering under his breath, "Ridiculous old fool," before striding into the elevator. That night, the janitor found himself humming an old tune as he worked. He remembered when his hands were young, when his dreams were large. He could have been many things, but life had its storms. Now this mop and bucket were his daily tools, but he carried them with pride. To him, each clean floor meant someone else walked safer. Each polished glass meant someone else saw the world clearer. To him, it mattered. Unseen by most, he kept the heart of the building alive, and though the rich man mocked him, he held no bitterness. He simply prayed, quietly in his heart, that someday the man would learn the lesson life was preparing for him. The lesson would come sooner than either expected. It was near midnight when the first spark fell unseen into the corner of the archives room, where old files and paper lay stacked like tinder. A tiny flicker, harmless at first, began to lick the walls. Within minutes, smoke curled through vents, and flames whispered hungrily through the dry stacks. The janitor was on the 12th floor sweeping when he smelled it, the acrid bite of smoke. He froze, lifted his head, and sniffed the air. His eyes widened. Dropping his mop, he sprinted toward the stairs. He had seen too many tragedies in his life to waste time. Meanwhile, the rich man sat alone in his office reviewing documents. He coughed, annoyed, thinking it was dust. Then he noticed the haze creeping under the door. His heart skipped. He rushed to the door, yanked it open, and was met with a thick wave of smoke. Panic gripped his chest. He stumbled back, covering his mouth. "Help! Somebody help!" he shouted, voice cracking. Down the hall, the janitor heard the cries. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the emergency axe from the wall and dashed toward the sound. His old legs pumped with a strength born of urgency. The rich man pounded on the glass window. Fear etched across his face as the fire roared closer. He was trapped. His mind raced. Money, power, none of it could save him now. Then, through the smoke, he saw the silhouette of the janitor, mop abandoned, axe in hand, eyes fierce with determination. The rich man's breath caught. The janitor shouted through the roar of flames, his voice commanding, "Stay low! Cover your mouth!" The rich man's pride shattered in that instant, replaced by raw desperation. He obeyed without a word, crawling to the floor as the janitor smashed through the door. Splinters flew, smoke rushed in, and flames clawed hungrily. But the janitor stood firm, his weathered hands pulling the door wide. He reached out. "Take my hand. We don't have much time." The rich man hesitated, trembling. This was the same man he mocked, the man he dismissed as replaceable. And yet here he was, the only lifeline between him and death. Eyes wide with fear, the rich man grasped the janitor's hand. The grip was strong, steady, unyielding, like the hand of a man who had held others up his whole life, even when no one noticed. Through the choking smoke and the blaze's heat, the janitor guided him down the hall. Fire alarms screamed. Sprinklers sputtered uselessly, and the building trembled with chaos. But the janitor's voice rang clear. "Don't look back. Keep moving. You'll make it." The rich man coughed violently, stumbling, but the janitor pulled him forward. Step by step, against the odds, they fought their way toward the stairwell. And in that harrowing moment, the rich man's world began to change, not by choice, but by truth. He was no longer the untouchable king of glass towers. He was just a man, saved by the hands of the one he called invisible. The stairwell echoed with chaos. Smoke curled down the steps like a living creature, suffocating and relentless. The janitor gripped the rich man's arm, his calloused hand steady as they stumbled downward. Each breath felt like fire in their lungs, each step heavier than the last. The rich man coughed violently, his suit soaked with sweat. His voice trembled. I can't go on." The janitor yanked him forward with a strength that seemed impossible for a man his age. "You don't get to quit now. Move. Your life is worth more than your fear. One step at a time, sir. Just one step." Tears stung the rich man's eyes, though whether from smoke or shame he couldn't tell. This was the man he had mocked, reduced to nothing more than a joke in his world of wealth. And now, this same man's grit and courage were the only reason his heart was still beating. A loud crash shook the building. Part of the ceiling above gave way, sending sparks raining down like angry stars. The janitor shielded the rich man with his own body, grunting as debris grazed his shoulder. He winced in pain but didn't slow. The rich man's voice cracked. "Why? Why are you risking yourself for me? After everything I said, everything I did?" Through the smoke, the janitor's eyes burned with something deeper than anger, something fierce and noble, because no life is worth less than another. You may not see it yet, but one day you will, and when that day comes, remember this moment. The words struck the rich man's heart like thunder. His knees buckled, but he pushed on, leaning on the janitor's strength. Step by step, they descended through the inferno. On the 8th floor, the stairwell was blocked by a wall of flames. The janitor froze, scanning desperately. The fire hissed and snapped, its heat unbearable. The rich man's panic erupted. "We're trapped! We're going to die here!" The janitor silenced him with a firm grip on his shoulder. His voice was steel. "Listen to me. You've spent your life believing money is power. But right now, courage is power, faith is power, and together we'll find a way." He spotted a maintenance door nearby. With a grunt, he kicked it open and shoved the rich man through. They found themselves in a storage hallway lined with cleaning supplies and old boxes. The smoke was lighter here, but the heat pressed in from all sides. The rich man collapsed against the wall, gasping. I can't do this! The janitor knelt in front of him, gripping his face with both rough hands, his eyes locked on his. Yes, you can. You've built empires. You've conquered boardrooms. Don't you dare tell me you can't walk through fire to save your life. Stand up, breathe, fight. For the first time in years, the rich man felt something break inside him, not fear, but pride. His eyes brimmed with tears. He nodded, shakily rising to his feet. All right, I'll fight. They pushed forward, navigating through the maze of hallways. Each corner threatened collapse, each step a gamble. At one point, a beam gave way, crashing down between them. The janitor dove, shoving the rich man aside, barely avoiding the flames himself. The rich man shouted, his voice raw. Why do you keep saving me? You should have left me. The janitor coughed, his lungs burning, but his words were steady. Because no man deserves to die alone, and because maybe, just maybe, this fire isn't here to destroy you, but to change you. Those words echoed in the rich man's soul, louder than the fire itself. For the first time, he saw the janitor not as a shadow or servant, but as a warrior, a protector, a man greater than he had ever been. Finally, they burst through another door into the stairwell below the 4th floor. Here, the smoke was thinner, but screams filled the air. Other employees were trapped, banging on doors, crying for help. The rich man froze, his eyes wide as he saw familiar faces, clerks, assistants, the people he had brushed past daily without so much as a hello. The janitor turned to him, urgency in his eyes. Go, get out, you're almost safe now. But the rich man's gaze lingered on the people behind the glass, pounding desperately. His heart twisted. For the first time in his life, he felt their fear as his own. His voice shook. We can't leave them. The janitor smiled faintly through the soot. Now you're starting to understand. Together they smashed the glass, helping people through one by one. The rich man tore off his expensive jacket to cover a young woman's face from the smoke. He lifted a boy onto his back, guiding him down the stairs. The janitor barked instructions, steady and commanding like a general in battle. Step by step, they led a small group toward the exit. The fire raged louder, but something stronger now filled the halls. Hope. By the time they burst through the ground floor doors into the night air, the building groaned behind them, flames devouring its walls. Firefighters rushed forward, guiding the survivors to safety. The rich man collapsed on the pavement, gasping, tears streaking through the soot on his face. The janitor sank beside him, exhausted, his chest heaving. For a long moment, they just sat in silence, the chaos of sirens and shouting around them. The rich man turned slowly, eyes glistening. His voice was barely a whisper. You saved me. You saved all of us, and I treated you like nothing. I don't deserve this. The janitor placed a hand on his shoulder, steady and gentle. Maybe not. But that's the thing about grace. It doesn't wait for you to deserve it. It's given because it's right. The rich man broke then, sobbing openly in front of the man he once mocked. He buried his face in his hands, the weight of his pride finally crumbling. The janitor looked toward the burning building, its reflection dancing in his weary eyes. Fire can destroy, but it can also purify. The man who walks out of that smoke is not the same man who walked in. The rich man lifted his gaze, trembling, but in his eyes, for the first time, there was humility. And in that moment, he knew. His life had been saved not only from the fire, but from himself. The flames were gone by morning, replaced by blackened ruins and smoke curling into the pale sky. The once-glass giant of a building now stood hollow, scarred by fire. Employees gathered in the parking lot, wrapped in blankets, clutching each other with trembling relief. The rich man sat on the curb, still covered in soot, his once immaculate hair matted and his expensive shoes burned at the edges. He stared blankly at the ground, his body present, but his mind replaying the night over and over. The cries, the heat, the hand that pulled him through it all. The janitor approached quietly, moving slower now, his limp more pronounced from the debris he'd shielded himself against. He held a paper cup of water, offering it with his weathered hand. The rich man looked up, eyes red, and accepted it with shaking fingers. His voice was raw. I can't stop thinking. Last night I thought I was untouchable. And then, in one moment, everything I built, gone. And the man I thought was beneath me was the one who carried me out alive. The janitor sat beside him, groaning softly as his knees bent. He took a slow breath before speaking. Life has a way of humbling us. Money, titles, pride, none of it matters when the fire comes. All that matters is who stands with you when everything else burns away. The rich man swallowed hard, tears threatening again. I don't deserve what you did. After the way I treated you, why didn't you just leave me? The janitor turned, his gaze steady, voice quiet but firm. Because I know what it feels like to be left behind, and I swore I'd never let another man face that if I had the strength to stop it. You mocked me, yes, but I saw past your words. I saw a man trapped in chains of his own pride. The rich man lowered his head, ashamed. I was blind. I saw you as nothing. But you, last night you were everything. You were braver than I'll ever be. The janitor smiled faintly, shaking his head. Bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about moving forward even when you are. And you, sir, you found that in yourself last night too. I saw it in your eyes when you chose to save the others instead of running. That was the moment you changed. The rich man's lips quivered. He remembered it, the clerks, the assistants, the boy he carried on his back. For the first time, their faces mattered to him. Their lives mattered more than his numbers, more than his empire. Days turned into weeks. News outlets covered the fire, calling the janitor a hero. Photos of him carrying people to safety spread across the city. But when reporters tried to call the rich man a hero too, he refused. He stood before them with microphones flashing and said, No, the real hero was the man you never noticed, the man you've walked past 100 times without seeing, the janitor. He saved me. He saved us all. The crowd fell silent at his words, and the janitor, standing behind him, bowed his head humbly. In the weeks that followed, the rich man was no longer the same. He rebuilt the company, yes, but this time with different foundations. Every employee, from the top executive to the janitor, received respect, fair pay, and recognition. He installed plaques in the new building's lobby with the names of every person saved that night, etched in gold as a reminder that no life was less than another. But most importantly, he forged a bond with the janitor that could not be broken. They shared meals in the cafeteria, talked about family, about life, about dreams. The rich man, for the first time, listened more than he spoke. One evening, months after the fire, the rich man sat across from the janitor in the cafeteria, their trays side by side. He leaned in and whispered, voice thick with emotion, You changed me. That night, you didn't just pull me from the fire, you pulled me out of myself, out of the prison I built with my own pride. I can't ever repay you for that. The janitor smiled, eyes soft. Then don't repay me. Live it. Treat every soul you meet as if they matter, because they do. That's repayment enough. The rich man nodded, a tear slipping free. You have my word. Years later, when people spoke of the wealthy man who once mocked a janitor, they didn't talk about his riches. They talked about how he gave scholarships to janitors' children, how he shook hands with every staff member daily, how he never again let a title blind him to a person's worth. And at every speech, every event, he ended with the same words. I once thought power was what made a man great, but it was a janitor, with nothing but a mop and courage, who showed me the truth. Greatness is not in what you own. It's in how you lift others when they fall. And so, the story came full circle. The rich man who mocked the janitor became the man who honored him. The one who once believed some lives mattered less now lived to prove that every life mattered deeply. Because sometimes it takes walking through fire to finally see clearly. And for you watching this right now, remember this. In your office, in your school, in your neighborhood, there is someone invisible, someone you've walked past without noticing. Maybe it's the security guard. Maybe it's the cleaner. Maybe it's the quiet coworker. Don't wait for a fire to open your eyes. See them now. Respect them now, because the very person you ignore today might be the one who saves you tomorrow. The story ends here, but its lesson never does. The fire took down walls, but it built something greater, a heart that learned humility. And when all was said and done, one truth remained unshakable. Sometimes the people you think are the smallest are the ones who save your life. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Black Saga, like this video, drop a comment about the lesson you took away, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today.